everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners. Audience members, I want to start by asking you to please silence your electronic devices. I would also like to remind you that in addition to the audience in this room, we have people watching and listening online, so please consider your language and comments and testimony today. And I'm actually on the wrong script, so hold on one second while I switch over to the correct one. All right, I'm just going to use the paper copy. So for those presenting today, please turn your mic on when you begin speaking and off when you've completed your remarks. For all presenters, please state your name for the record before speaking or responding to questions. So we have two board briefings today. The first is an informational board briefing on the contract for public safety services with the City of Troutdale. And we have Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell and Chief Deputy Carr here to talk to us about that today. So welcome, good morning, Sheriff, and I will turn things over to you.
Okay, we'll just wait for our presentation to pop up here. Thank you. All right, good morning, Chair Vega Peterson and Board of County Commissioners. I'm Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell, Multnomah County Sheriff. Joining me for the briefing today is Chief Deputy Carrie Kerr, who oversees our law enforcement division. And also in attendance, we have the City of Troutdale Mayor, Dave Ripma, our Chief of Business Services, John Harms-Millant, and our Patrol Captain, Captain Rob Stewart. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office values our service to the City of Troutdale and all of the communities in East County and across our West Side communities. And today we're really happy to be here to share the updated Public Safety Services Agreement that we've been working on with Troutdale over a year. Before we begin, I would like to personally thank Mayor Ripma for his support as we worked through this new contract together. And I would also ask if he would like to join us to say a few words about our partnership. So I would like to ask Mayor Ripma to come forward.
Welcome, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff and Commissioners. My name is David Ripma, and I'm Mayor of Troutdale. And I've been on the Troutdale City Council long enough that I've been there the whole time that the sheriff has provided police services in Troutdale over the last 10 years and was recently elected mayor. And we were faced with having to negotiate a new contract, but I am happy to report that it's been a pleasure working with Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell on a contract extension, and that is what is being presented tonight. I'll just say that Troutdale has had exemplary service from the sheriff deputies. Everybody loves them, and they've been occupying our police building since we started contracting with the sheriff's office for police services. Everything has really been a great success in Troutdale, and so I just thank Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell and her team and the county commissioners for providing these services to Troutdale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate you being here this morning.
And then we can go to the next slide. At the Sheriff's Office, along with our vision of a safe and thriving community for everyone, it is our mission to support all community members through exemplary public safety services. Our partnership with the City of Troutdale is strong, and we share the same commitments To provide an example, the city's Department of Community Development's mission for fostering community visions, developing opportunities, and maintaining safe environments for the betterment of Troutdale, I believe, also includes the services that we provide to the city, prioritizing safe neighborhoods and schools, fostering community partnerships and growth, and developing innovative public safety strategies, including new technology to accomplish our collective goals. Next slide, please. This is our agenda for today. We'll have a brief overview of our contract, the service model that's provided, and the data that's related to calendar year 2024. In addition, we'll highlight our positive community engagement and then next steps with this contract. Next slide, please. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office began the policing services contract for the city of Troutdale in 2015. This contract at its core focused on patrol, investigations, administrative support, and in 2020, a community resource deputy was added. Over the last 10 years, we have been extremely proud to serve the city, and we feel highly connected to those that we serve. Troutdale is our community. As the years have passed, previous City of Troutdale police officers that transferred to the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office through this initial agreement have really continued to value where it all began. From deputy sheriffs who have family connections to the city and still patrol the area, to those on our command staff who are now leading at the highest levels of this organization. Our entire team is dedicated to the city of Troutdale and all of our communities across Multnomah County. As noted on this slide, the new contract would continue services through the end of fiscal year 2028, in accordance with the 3-year cost structure that's listed here. To explain further, this contract is being initiated as a transition agreement to support the city of Troutdale and its pursuit of establishing their own independent city police department, as that has been the center of their contract negotiations. I will now turn it over to Chief Deputy Carrie Kerr to cover law enforcement operations, and we can go to the next slide.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. I'm Chief Deputy Carrie Kerr, and I'm responsible for leading the law enforcement division. This includes oversight of operations for police services throughout unincorporated Multnomah County and our contract cities. It's been an honor providing public safety services to the city of Troutdale and its community members for the past 10 years. The city includes Reynolds School District, large multi-jurisdictional recreational spaces, a small local airport, and I-84 linking the Columbia River Gorge back to more populated community. The deputy sheriffs assigned to Troutdale provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, comprehensive public safety policing services throughout the city between 2 districts. These services are conducted through uniformed patrol, marine patrol, investigative efforts, civil processes, and community resource programs, as well as with system partner collaborations. Our updated agreement continues to focus on the core services of patrol, investigations, and administrative support to the Law Enforcement Records Unit. The Records Unit not only provides support to our deputies, but also interacts with community members who visit Troutdale Sheriff's Office looking for assistance or information. And finally, a dedicated community resource deputy that focuses on city initiatives and proactive ways of addressing complex area issues. Next slide, please. Pictured on this slide is Deputy Nick Borer. Deputy Borer serves as a conduit for community members to make personal connections and to work together for solutions to issues in the city of Troutdale. As I just mentioned, this type of position and role is not assigned as a general patrol deputy, allowing for a focus on larger or longer scale problems and projects. Recently, Deputy Borer focused his efforts on a residential property where a specific individual was creating livability issues in the neighborhood. This individual is well known to deputies for possessing stolen property and vehicles. Deputy Borer was able to establish enough probable cause to apply for a search warrant to search the individual's residence for stolen property. During the search, Deputy Borer was able to locate several items of stolen property, all while the neighbors were outside of their homes watching and thanking the deputies. One thankful neighbor even sat on the roof of their home watching the deputies at work. Deputy Bohr also learned an elderly male was living in the residence and in need of services. Multnomah County Aging Services was contacted and connected with the elderly man. This is just one example of the great work our deputies do. Next slide, please. This slide contains quite a bit related to our calls for service data. We've included it this way to show the volume of calls and varied types of incidents we are dispatched to. MCSO's dispatch calls for service have remained fairly steady, with self-initiated calls going down due to calls taking longer. You can see at the bottom here that the time spent on calls for emergency and non-emergency purposes have both increased. The calls our deputies respond to have become more resource intensive and dangerous, requiring multiple deputies to respond in order to keep the deputies and community members safe. We use data to make informed decisions about operations. For example, data shows that the busiest times for transit police is during the morning and evening commutes. So we staff accordingly and deploy deputies on the system during those times to be present on the system, which is known to prevent crime and to respond to calls for service when someone needs our help. We use calls for service data to inform public safety strategies, particularly when and where to hold public safety missions, whether it's a particular station or transit line, and type of crime or call we are all focusing on trying to address. Next slide, please. We have held high visibility enforcement missions related to DUI, street racing, and retail theft. These missions also result in recovering stolen property and seizing weapons. Recently, MCSO conducted a DUI mission to honor the lives of Reserve Deputies Scott Collins and Mark Whitehead, who were killed by a drunk driver who hit their patrol vehicle head-on while on I-84. MCSO collaborated with Oregon State Police, Portland Police Bureau to patrol the highway and roads to keep the community safe and identify impaired drivers and honor our fallen deputies. These high visibility enforcement missions acknowledge that effective partnerships between law enforcement and community partners are essential to public safety, and it is vital to recognize that public safety is a shared responsibility. Next slide, please. MCSO values neighborhood relationships and the opportunities to engage with our community members during special events. Being able to connect with folks in positive ways help build trust between law enforcement and the people they serve. MCSO deputies look forward to interacting with community members during events such as Christmas tree lighting, First Fridays, Flicks in the Park, and our annual Outlet Mall Halloween event. We look forward to and really enjoy participating in these for Troutdale. Thank you for this opportunity to report on our great work, and I'll hand it back to the sheriff.
Thank you, Chief Deputy Kerr. We can go to the next slide. We look forward to continuing our 3-year partnership with the City of Troutdale to provide professional and high-quality public safety services. As we are moving through the next few years together, we remain committed to the safety of our Troutdale community, as well as supporting their pursuit of an independent police department, if that continues to be the desired direction. Until then, the City of Troutdale can count on the Sheriff's Office and the proud members who are dedicated to a life of public service. They show up every day and do their best work, often risking their personal safety and the protection of our communities. And they are dedicated to providing exceptional policing services day in and day out. Next slide, please. Today, we've appreciated the opportunity to outline the services of this contract and highlight our positive relationship with the City of Troutdale. And I think also in this presentation, being able to see the work that we do in collaboration with all of our local law enforcement partners, as well as service providers that assist us in the work that we're doing every day. So at this time, we are happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the presentation. I will remind the board members that we do have an item on our agenda for Thursday where we would be approving this contract with the City of Troutdale. So with that, I will open it up for questions from the board. I'll start with Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah, I am curious about, in your conversations, the the process of transitioning and how that impacts this 3-year agreement and what we might expect.
Absolutely. So again, I want to reiterate that we will continue to work with the mayor, and there will be a new city manager coming in as well, as the city manager we were working with is retiring. So that will give us an opportunity to work with someone that will be seeing this through, but it will be challenging. It is a fast turnaround. We are currently in their policing services building, and so there will be several conversations about, is this the direction that you're still wishing to move forward with, or has there been other discussions within the city that having the sheriff's office and retaining our services is the most effective option? And then we will be renegotiating past this 3 years. But this is a very quick timeline to do all of what would need to be done to be able to start up, to have a city start up their own police department.
And then I just have one language concern with the contract. That is in section 10, 10.2, non-discrimination. It uses the term handicap at the very end, and that is not a commonly used and often found offensive term. So I'm just wondering if we could edit that to disability.
We will work with Troutdale to do so. Thank
right,
you
thank
for
you.
calling that to attention.
Thank you. Commissioner Singleton.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is, does this fully cover the cost of those services that you and your team provide?
Thank you for bringing that up. While this new agreement includes an increase in our annual revenue for the county, it does not fully recoup the costs associated with MCSO to provide these services to Troutdale. We came to the table and pared down services, but we also want this brief transition agreement to allow Troutdale the space and time to stand up their own municipal police department. Should we continue conversations to move forward, if they select or wish to continue to contract with us further than that, we all recognize that we have to work toward full cost recovery.
Thank you. On slide 7, where we talk about data, 7, is there other, I guess I'm not, bear with me, this police data is new data for me. What is this data meant to tell me? Just response times? Is this average? Is this above average? Just can you give me a little more context there?
So really, our calls that are dispatched and self-initiated, as I mentioned, our self-initiated calls have gone down because calls are just getting more dangerous. And we just want to point out that, our investigations are becoming more and more entailed, and we're having to spend more time on calls. We just want to be very transparent with our data to show although there is a decrease in self-initiated calls, there's reasoning behind that, and it's because we're trying to do the best job that we can for each and every call, and calls are becoming more dangerous to us. We also use this data to really focus our efforts when we do missions or even just regular enforcement, focused enforcement in neighborhoods if we're finding areas that have a higher rate of crimes that are occurring.
Thank you. And then on slide 8, do we collect any demographic data on these enhanced public safety missions?
We could get that data. It's all captured on reports that the deputies are filling out when they make those contacts and arrests.
Awesome, thank you. I'd love that as follow-up. And then just a couple of things in the IGA itself. There's some language in section 4.5 that refers to terms and costs for the facilities. What are the lease terms for the space that we're using? Is that something that you all have handy?
I'm going to check in to see if John Harms Millant has additional information, as they were working with county and providing us updates on how to manage through the lease of that building.
Good morning. John Harms Millant, Chief of Business Services. I'm happy to provide that to you. That's all managed through facilities. The term of the lease as executed, I guess, a decade ago was essentially just to continue through the length of the IGA. So we do lease that building from the city of Troutdale, the county does. We have a minor provision change going into this new IGA, which is facilities will be assuming janitorial services through internal service reimbursement to us, but really it's otherwise unchanged.
Thank you. And I think it relates for me to the cost recovery question, where we maybe not be at full cost recovery and we're also paying for a space. So that would, if we could factor those together, that would be helpful for me to understand what the actual cost to Multnomah County is. Thank you. And then I also have something from the language. It says the sheriff or his designee in section 12, and I think we can either go gender neutral or correct it. That would be great. Thanks, I really appreciate it. I know I appreciate all the work that you all are doing, and I know and appreciate the mayor coming to talk today and the support that Troutdale feels from your work. So thank you, and I'll look forward to those follow-ups before we get to Thursday's vote. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Brim Edwards.
Thanks for the presentation. And Commissioner Singleton asked my question about cost recovery, and you've answered it. So I don't have any further questions. Thanks again.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones-Dixon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the presentation, Sheriff and Chief Deputy. And just want to say thank you for just being nimble and flexible and working with the leadership. And thank you, Mayor Ripa, for coming out and sharing your support as well.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. I appreciate the numerous conversations you and I have had around this and all of the work that you and your team have done to bring this contract forward. Appreciate the work of Troutdale's, both the mayor, the council, and the city manager in getting us to this place. We had some great questions from the board today. The cost recovery one is something that I remember coming up anytime these contracts come forward, but when this came up the first time several years ago. So we will look forward to more conversation about this on Thursday when we take this up as a board action. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
All right, our next presentation is an update on the Multnomah County Sobering Services. Today's briefing is by our health department, and it's going to focus on the Pathway Center's sobering program and updates on the Permanent Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Center. The last time we heard updates on this program was in March, before sobering services or 24/7 operations had started at the center. So I'm really appreciative of this chance that we have to hear from the health department, get their updates, and learn more about how these services are already impacting our community. I do want to just note, like, leadership at the health department, at the Department of County Assets have worked so hard to create and implement a deflection program and sobering program on an expedited timeline, and adding those sobering capabilities even before a permanent facility opens. This has been such a strong stance that Multnomah County has been able to take around our behavioral health continuum of care, providing better connections between law enforcement and our behavioral health systems. So we're going to hear more today about those impacts, including the addition of the sobering services that started in April. The new facility that we are going to be building in the next few years will provide both sobering and withdrawal management services and be the permanent location for Multnomah County's deflection program, which will continue to help divert people from jail and hospital emergency departments. That I see as a cornerstone commitment as a county and a community to meeting people where they are and helping them find their next steps. I am proud of the county's investment in this work, despite the fact that the city has not followed through on their support of this joint effort in failing to include the $1.9 million for sobering services that was originally included in their 2025 budget and promised in their 2026 budget. I sincerely hope the city will reverse course and make good on their commitments to support this work that has been such a benefit to both the Portland Police Bureau and the community. I do want to note that Commissioner Brim Edwards has been such a leader and champion for sobering services since taking office. I appreciate her focus in the 2025 budget note that brought this work and our chance to get a thorough briefing today. I also want to thank Commissioner Moyer for her support of this facility in her district and look forward to continuing to work closely with her moving forward. So with that, I will turn it over to our panelists today, Anthony, Mark, and Dan. Thank you so much for being here today.
Good morning. Before I get started, Chair and the other commissioners, I think it wouldn't be possible without the leadership that we have today. Y'all have been really great in helping us bring sobering, especially you and Commissioner Brim Edwards and the other commissioners. So we really appreciate that support. Thanks for having us today. My name is Anthony Jordan. I'm the Interim Behavioral Health Director. And I'm going to turn it over to our fellow panelists to introduce themselves before we get started.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Mark Harris, he, him pronouns, Strategic Initiatives Manager in the Health Department Director's Office.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, Chair Vega Peterson and Commissioners. It's nice to be with you today. Dan Zalko, Division Director for Facilities and Property Management, a division within the Department of County Assets.
Next slide. As the chair outlined, we're here today to update you on the new sobering services that the county has implemented. And today we're going to go over the Pathway Center Sobering Program updates, the permanent facility overview and timeline, the permanent facility updates. Did I say the first? I meant the Pathway Center Sobering Program updates. Request for proposal, permanent facility neighborhood engagement, the governance and leadership structure, and our next steps. Next slide. We are excited to start this presentation by sharing that the Pathway Center Sobering Program opened 24/7 on April 28th for law enforcement referrals. The program includes voluntary sobering services, 13 sobering stations, including 1 designated quiet room for individuals who prefer a less stimulating environment, and comfort medication to help clients stabilize, and program retention. The comfort medications and voluntary aspects of this program are some of the key features that were implemented as lessons learned from the previous sobering station in Multnomah County. Since our opening, we'd like to share that 26 individuals utilized the sobering program as of June 16th. Next slide. In our last update, we showed you the deflection client journey map. The slide before you illustrates the journey and pathway as individuals take while engaging the Pathway Sobering Program. As you can see in the first step, they go through the reception and intake, where they get their documentations, where the police bring them in. They go through a screening process, both medical and behavioral health, and then they are assigned a sobering station, where the nurse and other personnel would go and make sure that they are comfortable and they monitor them for services. And then they have care coordination services in stage 4, where they start working on discharge planning and getting them to the next level of care. And then a referral is made, and then transportation is provided to the additional services based upon the care plan that's developing in the step 4. And I want to go back, if you look at during the screening process, if someone do not meet the criteria for screening services, for sobering services, they're referred out to the appropriate level of care. Next slide. I'm excited to share, as of yesterday, we are expanding referrals to 5 teams that have touch points with law enforcement. These teams include Portland Street Response, Project Respond, Community Health Access and Treat, which is called CHAT, 4D Recovery, Mental Health and Addiction Associations of Oregon. The new referral partners will provide transportation to the Pathway Center, and the referral criteria includes the referral partners determining if the person appears to need sobering services, that the person does not require immediate medical attention, the person is not experiencing a mental health crisis or danger to themselves or others, is 18 years or older, and is alert and voluntarily willing to participate. We understand that there's a great interest in what further expansion might look like, and we still continue to assess engagement and capacity, as we have done since the inception of the Sobering program. Our goal has always been to determine the appropriate incoming referrals from first responders and teams that have touch points with law enforcement and the household population who may be in need of these services. Turk House is working with OHSU to get the sobering stations on the OHSU bed and capacity management system. This means we'll be able to monitor the usage in real time. Next slide. Again, as a reminder, these services transition to the permanent Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Center once it's open. The permanent facility is located at 1901 Southeast Grand Avenue and will offer deflection, sobering, withdrawal management, and medication-assisted treatment, and also provide care coordination, referral, and transportation services. In addition to the primary services, showers, meals, laundry, security, and other services will be provided. Next slide. We took a thoughtful and strategic approach to developing the request for proposal by first releasing a request for information and engaging partners to better understand the operational needs of operating the services outlined earlier. The process resulted in valuable information that helped us draft a more comprehensive request for proposal. We plan to open the request for proposal in July and close in the month later. And now I'll pass it over to Dan.
Thank you, Anthony. Next slide, please. So we have completed the programming, conceptual design, and schematic design phases of the project. Our general contractor, Fortis, is currently analyzing the schematic design documents and in order to provide feedback on constructability and to provide new cost estimates and schedules. We also have a third-party estimator, which is also developing a new estimate, and these two estimates are going to be reconciled over the next few weeks, looking for errors, allowing us to make design decisions, which will ultimately come up with a new project estimate and schedule sometime in July. That schedule and new cost estimate will be provided to the Sobering Center leadership team in August. We just started the design development phase, which will continue through the summer, and we're in active correspondence with the city related to permitting and early work packages to expedite the project. Next slide, please. Now here we see the cost estimate and schedule that we shared with you back in April after the conceptual design phase. And as I noted in the previous slide, we will have new estimates and a new schedule sometime in July as we review the schematic design documents. The FY26 budget does include just under $15 million for the project, which is more than sufficient to cover the expenses projected in FY26. This slide also shows key board decisions, with the next one being next spring when we will seek your approval to proceed with construction. Also, in the next few months, we will have some aesthetically pleasing materials to share with you all, like renderings of the exterior facade, signage, artwork, etc. All right, next slide, please, and I'll now pass it over to Mark.
Thanks, Dan. Now I'd like to share about neighborhood engagement since our last update and provide an overview of next steps. As a reminder, neighborhood engagement is different from the engagement we were doing with providers, peers, law enforcement, broader community, and other partners. It's focused on collaborators within the Hosford-Abernathy Neighborhood District, or HAND. The slide before you depicts the neighborhood mailer that was sent out to HAND residents and businesses to share about the Permanent Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Center's community event, which was held on March 20th, and also shows the planned services for the facility. Next slide, please. Here I'd like to note we are thoughtfully proceeding with neighborhood engagement through 4 stages that we aligned with milestones related to the facility timeline. Stage 1 was aligned with the site selection and included engaging in community meetings, designing and sending a neighborhood mailer, which you saw earlier, hosting a community meeting on March 20th, creating a meeting question and answer reference document, a form for community to opt in for communication updates, and a 1-pager about the site's location. All of these can be found on the Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Center's webpage. Stage 2 aligns with discovery or findings related to design, permitting, and construction planning. This stage includes reviewing feedback from the community meeting, continuing neighborhood engagement, sending communications and updates about the project, and selecting the facility, the facility operator. Stage 3 aligns with design and construction and will include forming a Good Neighbor Advisory Group and establishing the meeting cadence, finalizing a Good Neighbor Agreement, and community meetings and tours once the facility is close to opening. And then Stage 4 will continue ongoing community collaboration once the facility is operational. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the county's engagement in Stage 1. We are currently in Stage 2 and in the process of incorporating feedback from the community meeting into the draft of the engagement plan. We are also planning for Stage 3 engagement, continuing to engage with neighborhood collaborators, coordinating with community engagement staff in the Homeless Services Department, and planning for communications around the selection of the provider once they are identified. Next slide, please. Now we will move to the project's governance structure. This structure is specific to designing and implementing the permanent facility. However, the facility and work itself is integrated into the larger treatment and recovery system through behavioral health leading the programmatic work and regularly engaging system partners in the design and development of the program. We've implemented many components of the governance structure, including the Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Leadership Team, Facility Executive Stakeholder Committee, Facility Project Sponsors, Facility Design, and components of the programmatic teams and advisory groups. We can fully get these structures in place once we have a facility operator. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to expand on the advisory groups and their role within the leadership structure. Advisors provide advice and make recommendations based on best practices and community needs in regards to programming, facility design, transportation, service delivery, and other programmatic needs for advice as they arise. As much as possible, we are working to tap the expertise of existing groups to avoid redundancies. Some examples of where we had tapped technical expertise and sought advice thus far include the Behavioral Health Division's Civil Sobering Hold Transportation Work Group, which includes EMS, hospital system providers, Central City Concern, Portland Street Response, the Portland Police Bureau, MHAAO, and other partners. We've also worked with our Behavioral Health Advisory Council, which includes people with lived experience, advocates, behavioral health service providers, public partners, and family members. Next steps for this group include engaging them in the facility naming process and regional arts and cultural council process. We've also worked closely with Behavioral Health Resource Network partners, including peer organizations, culturally specific providers and treatment providers, law enforcement, and first responders in the design of field-based deflection and pathway center workflows. Last thing I'll cover here as far as what we've done is we've also brought in technical experts, including the Oregon Health Authority, OHSU, and treatment providers to provide guidance on our facility design. As I stated earlier, this work is in process and advisory groups and needs will continue to evolve as we contract with the provider and continue designing how services will be delivered. We also plan to work through how this advisory structure can address referral access for homeless service providers to addictions treatment programs, as we know the population we are serving is impacted by both houselessness and substance use. Next slide, please. So as far as next steps, we have stages 2 and 3 of the Good Neighbor work. The RFP will be issued and then subsequently closed. We'll continue launching the governance structure teams, launch facility naming process, and continue the design phase. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to say thanks again for giving us the time to provide this update. We look forward to continuing to share the progress in this work with the Sobering and Crisis Stabilization Leadership Team, as well as the board. And lastly, as Anthony started with, we really appreciate your all support. We couldn't be doing this without you, and we're looking forward to keeping stuff moving along. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for the presentation. I want to turn it over to the board for questions. I want to start with Commissioner Brim Edwards, though, because this is a result of her ongoing budget note from last year. And so just want to open up for you for any comments or questions.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I appreciate it also that you had an opportunity to share a similar version with the local Public Safety Coordinating Commission yesterday, who are, many of them are our partners in this process in the successful implementation of providing services. And we're frankly created a pull market for the sobering center. So thank you for that. I was pleased to see that we're bringing on new referral partners, just given the fact that I know this is something that having additional referral partners will mean that we'll be able to have better utilization of the center. And I was wondering if you could share what the current utilization rates are of the sobering beds that have been put in place, the temporary ones. How long are people staying? How are people getting there? The initial numbers we saw were relatively low, and obviously we know that there is definitely a need for the utilization of those beds. So I'm curious sort of what you're thinking about how to approach the sort of using all the capacity we have since it's much needed.
Yeah, as of Friday, so the 16th, we had 26 total. First week there was 2. The first week of ending in 5/5, we had 2. Week ending in 5/12, we had 5. Week ending in 5/19, we had 9, and then 5 again the week ending 5/26, and then 3 week ending 6/9 into the week ending 6/16. The average length of stay has been just under 12 hours. Again, mode of transportation for all of those was PPB. So yesterday was the first day that we opened the referrals up further. We're really hoping that that's going to increase utilization.
So with the new referral partners, they'll just, it's anticipated they would be provide similar service that currently the PPB does, that people are going there voluntarily, and they would be dropped off and then go through the sort of process for intake and receive sobering services?
Yeah, that's correct. We developed a similar, field protocol for them that's based off of PPBs, so they're following that.
And yesterday was the first day that was open?
Correct.
What are we anticipating for this next week?
Well, hopefully more.
Okay, well, that's positive. It's better than less.
It's hard to know. I mean, we've heard from our peer partners have said that they see a high need. So we're thinking that hopefully we'll be able to get some volume from them specifically. I think it'll be interesting to see with Portland Street Response and Project Respond and that first and chat, kind of what that volume does look like, because I think a lot of it's going to depend on the acuity of the individuals that they're interacting with. And we know that sometimes, there's a higher mental health acuity that wouldn't be appropriate for the facility, and they'd probably need to transport them to Unity or another, higher acuity care. And I don't know, Anthony, do you want to talk a little bit about chat and kind of what that process has looked like?
I want to also address your question. I think over time, once, like sobering is a new service, there's going to be a new referral process. And once people start understanding the type of referral that need to be for sobering, the numbers are gradually increased with the 5 new referral partners that we brought on. So it may start off slow, but we look for an increase and not knowing what that number may be. It's really assessing who should go into sobering and opposed to going somewhere else. And I think once we fine tune that and continue training, that number will increase over time. And CHAT has a really good program where they have a lot of after hours where they take individuals they induce individuals in the field, but not having a place to take them. And because those people are generally stable, and then they come and pick individuals up and take them into like Old Town Clinic for their medication-assisted treatment, that would definitely offer an opportunity. It's actually designed for that type of individuals so they can have a safe place to go and then go to that service provider the next morning. So I think that's going to increase the numbers where we are using the capacity of the center as well.
Great. Well, I'm really happy to see the list of referral partners that have been added. I know whether it was on a ride-along with Portland Street Response or talking to the chat teams, the need for this is very real. So I'm hoping this will get full utilization of the temporary sobering beds. A question I have, one of the other entity that really indicated that this was a needed service, especially after the Hooper closed and the sobering center closed in 2019, was law enforcement. And they also have said, oftentimes if somebody, if there's no sort of criminal activity, but somebody who's intoxicated and could go to the sobering services, not really, sobering center, it's not really their, that's not really their role. And they have sort of given their duties higher priorities than transporting somebody to the sobering center. So I'm curious with adding on the referral partners. So say if law enforcement engages with somebody who is not, there's no criminal activity, but they clearly could use a place to sober up. Can they contact like Portland Street Response or one of the other providers and one of the other referral partners like come and pick them up versus having law enforcement engaged in the transport to the sobering center, which doesn't seem necessary nor sometimes appropriate?
I think with the Portland Street Response, they get all their calls through BOAC, which is 911. But you bring up a good point, and I think what we're going to try to do is work on a system where maybe the like 4D and MHAL could get those calls, and maybe they get called because they wouldn't have to go through a system like that. Like I think as we stated in notes, we are trying to make sure that we've reached a full capacity. So that is something that we would have to look at and create some kind of flow to sort of get, the police to sort of know who to call, and it's sort of operationally. So that's operationally possible what you outlined. I don't think we have that flow just yet.
Were you going to say something, Mark?
No, yeah, it's not in place yet, but we have been talking about it, and I think we're looking at some expansions on the deflection side that could mirror that as well. So I think we're working to build that out to try to lessen capacity on PPB's need to transport.
So I just have one last question, and this is more of a request that if as you move ahead, it seems like there's still some barriers to our referral partners and law enforcement effectively using the sobering center and using the capacity that we have to let us know. And then the second piece, the request would be just in terms of the timeline. If you run into, I know there's both the programmatic piece and also the facilities piece. If you run into issues that are creating delays or problems with the timeline, to let us know early on versus once we're stuck in a delay, because I'll just speak for myself. I would love to be able to help out to keep us on track and also fully utilize the beds at the sobering beds we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jones-Dixon.
Great. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for day 2 of the presentations. Our office, we're curious to learn more about just how deflection is working out in East Multnomah County. I think yesterday the numbers showed, I think, only 3 deflectees. So we're gonna want to work with you more deeply, and then also the chief and law enforcement District 4. Outside of that, we're going in the right direction. So thank you for the presentation. You don't have to.
Did you want us to answer that? So we have that pilot project with Fourth Dimension out working with Gresham.
Yeah.
And we're really working on sort of that partnership with, I actually talked to the chief about sort of organizing that so that we could get the data. There's been very little true deflection, some of it's distance, but the numbers they are working closely to get those numbers up. There's some challenges I think they're working through with the provider and sort of the way it's operating, but they're working through some of those challenges. Give us like maybe the next time we present, we'll make sure we'll bring back what those numbers look like, and hopefully it's increasing and the flow is a little less fragmented.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah, I think I share my colleagues' concern about utilization and the implications on the permanent sobering center. And I think there's estimated need and then there's actual utilization, and I'm nervous about that. So I appreciate the work that's being done to try to figure out how we remove those barriers and make sure that service is available. I agree with Commissioner Brim Edwards that the need is apparent in the community. So I think it's really, how do we get the pieces working? But then I do want to make sure that we're making space in our conversations about the build out, that it reflect kind of what is likely to be our reality. One of the areas that I've continued to want to have conversations about is the intersection between substance use disorder and intoxication and mental illness, and trying to demystify this idea that you can necessarily separate the two, or that you can distinguish between the two. And I want to make sure that we are not limiting the value of the Sobering Center for people who are experiencing dual diagnosis who do not present a threat to themselves or others. They may, I talk a lot to people having my background related to individuals who are held for potential civil commitment, and the reality that, this is psychiatrist level, it is incredibly difficult to distinguish psychosis and its root cause without some time. And so I want to make sure that we can appropriately respond. And again, I'm not talking about people who are a threat to themselves or others. That is clearly a different level of care, but that we make sure that our staffing and our training allow us to appropriately serve people when we don't know. And the truth is, I think a lot of people view these communities as more separate than they are. We know that 30+% of individuals with a substance use disorder also experience a moderate to severe mental illness. And we know that 70% of people with severe persistent mental illness have a corresponding substance use disorder. So, I really want us to continue to have a conversation about how sobering and medically assisted detox is also informed around behavioral health. And, I think there's a lot of research and best practice that says, regardless of what the driver is of a substance use disorder, that behavioral health is an integral component in addressing that. And I definitely understand that we're not building a center for psychiatric emergencies. That's not what this is. But I think we also need to have conversations about how we serve people with a substance use disorder who may also be experiencing a serious mental illness that does not rise to needing to be hospitalized or will not fit that legal criteria. I think the Sobering Center needs to be able to accommodate and serve and appropriately refer, which is a complicated issue due to the lack of services for people with dual diagnosis. But this is a conversation I have with policymakers about, some of these, the realities are not distinguishable necessarily right away. And so we have to have a conversation, because we will absolutely have people present whatever way they are brought that are going to be in psychosis and not necessarily need hospitalization. So I just bring that up because I want to continue to have a conversation to make sure that as we look at the right providers, that they have that expertise. And I continue to ask, have we evaluated if in fact Multnomah County is the right provider, particularly on the medically assisted detox side. I'm not, I think the sobering side, we have a relationship with an organization that is an expert at that, but I am curious about, why in these conversations we haven't had that back and forth about should Multnomah County be the provider, if not why? And I'm looking for that information because I don't understand why we've not seriously considered running this ourselves.
Those are good questions, and I just want to answer the first part, and then I'll get to the second part. Like, if you look at the name, we call it the crisis stabilization and sobering for a reason, and it gets to your point that we wanted to use this period of time to sort of look at what the client population would be, and really take an intentional approach to addressing the needs of people with intoxicated and the sort of array and complexities come with that. So when we had the permanent facility, we would know what type of services we needed to offer. And as you know about the crisis stabilization, it may offer both. It's the same kind of style, but it may offer us an opportunity to do a co-occurring with the sober and inclusive model in the permanent facility. And I think this is an opportunity for us to learn what we need as far as like personnel, as far as like medications, stabilization services that we would need to have in place. So I think we're learning what that look like. So when we have the permanent facility, we can possibly do exactly what you're asking about. And we are looking at the second part to your question. We're looking at the feasibility. You had to ask us to do that. We're looking at that feasibility, and we're going to get that to sort of lay out what that would look like, opposed to sort of doing it contractually.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Singleton.
Good morning. Thank you. Not just for the presentation, but the work. I really appreciate, I think you all know how excited I am to see the expansion of referrals. I think you would be shocked if I didn't say, and I want us to go a step further, right? Because we've got almost all diagnosing agencies. And I think some of this gets to some of the other points that folks have made. So I look forward to those continued conversations. And I think particularly looking forward to working with you all based on the budget note that I had introduced around connecting and actually creating a system of recovery, right? Right now we've got folks coming in, they might get referrals, but they're probably on the street or in a low barrier shelter. There's a lot of complications that we can make it, I think, more seamless for the human being trying to navigate back into sobriety and back into housing. So those are going to be conversations that I'm really keenly interested in. A couple of pieces, is there a timeline on that next phase? I know you just today or yesterday was the first day, so it's okay if the answer is no. But is there a timeline on the thought process around next step of expansion?
We don't have that yet.
Okay.
I think we're just trying to get this up and running, and then once we have that sort of flow and all the kinks and everything worked out, we will look at the next opportunity to see, we don't want to have wait lists as well. Like we want to make sure if we are not meeting capacity and not having wait lists for people to get into that service, then we would look at that. We're just trying to see what the capacities look like with the additional, and then we would make some decisions after that.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that, and we can talk more later as you get to that part of the plan. I want to just make a couple of comments on some of the transportation back and forth that you had with Commissioner Brim Edwards, and just really ask that we're thoughtful about that. We have really skilled, trained workers out there doing really good work, and I wouldn't want them to be pulled offline to do transportation. So let's explore all options of what transportation could look like, because I think there is a need where it's not a law enforcement referral of them, right? There's no crime. It's not they're not going to be the transport, but it also, I don't want our outreach staff or our navigation staff who are working with clients to try and have to figure out how to navigate that. So what I would just ask that you talk to them about some other options. I didn't love the Cheers van, but there's got to be some other options that we can look at.
We are planning to purchase a van for the facility. It wouldn't be the Cheers van model, but so that we're able to provide transport in and out. So I think there's an option we can build out there where they could call, dispatch the van, they could go pick them up and bring them back. So we are looking into that too, and that should be coming online, in the next few months. So that's another modality that we're looking at as well.
Awesome, thank you. Just as long as they're trained and trauma informed, it'll be a big step. I think the last piece, thank you for talking a little bit about the advisory groups, because there's a lot of advisory groups at the county. So I appreciate you talking through how they're integrating and leveraging and making sure that you're connecting with folks with lived experience. That's the really critical piece to me, is people who have been through this being able to help inform us. They're the best experts. So I appreciate you talking that through. I think again, the structure of this and how it fits into the larger system is really where a lot of my questions lie, and that isn't about the presentation you had today. So I know it's really quickly after the budget process, but I look forward to talking with you all about that, because it's what I hear the most from providers in the community is, I can't get access into treatment, but then also when somebody comes out of treatment, I don't know about it, and now I haven't had the connection to get them into housing. And I just think we've got to take away the barriers that we create as a system, not you all. The system has created for people to actually have a more seamless journey back into housing and sobriety. So I look forward to that and working with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I love the questions and conversation around this. I will say that I think that to your last point, Commissioner Singleton, this is where it's important to also be having this conversation and including our the healthcare partners that are providing some of these services that we don't necessarily have insight or access into, to be setting up that system of continuous care as people move throughout the different parts of the system, and making sure that those connections are strong, and making sure that there's good communication so that we can have the best impact on folks as possible. I do want to appreciate all of the providers who have really leaned into this process. I think the expansion of who's being able to refer to sobering is a really big step. I know that providers are also ready to lean in if we were able to open up the eligibility for deflection as well. And we've had folks who have been, really great in this work from day one when the House bill went into effect on September 1st of last year. I am also interested for the East County pieces and the work that is happening there. I think 4D has done a great job of, again, like leaning in and showing up for the work. And then so making sure that even though it's field-based deflection, like we have, that's incorporated into how we are following the process and making sure that it's having as much impact as possible. The capacity issue is always concerning. I think what has been crystal clear to me, though, is the ability of law enforcement to focus their work on identifying people who would be eligible for deflection makes a huge difference in the usage of the Pathway Center. I mean, we have seen when the inauguration was happening and there were many more law enforcement officers downtown Portland who had capacity to do this, we saw a big increase then. We saw that just last month when they did really focused efforts on folks who were using drugs in the downtown area, and saw that. And I think what we also saw is that the capacity at the clinic was able to be able to Turk House and others were able to really respond to that increased referral and still be able to manage those folks and do all of, get them in, go through the process of making sure that they were connected into the system that we've set up. So I think that that is something that we need to continue to work on. And I know we've had great commitment from, Commander Brian Hughes on setting expectations with the law enforcement officers in the Central Precinct that they will be, engaging with folks and making referrals to the deflection center, and we just need to continue to grow that. I think that there is also one of the things that I know you talked about yesterday, Anthony, or mentioned yesterday in the LPSIC meeting, is that the learnings that we are having now with the temporary center and kind of the pilot phases of some of this work around deflection and sobering are really going to help inform the permanent center that's being built. I think some of that is, around the capacity, just how many sobering beds do we think we are going to need, how much what does the deflection need to look like? What is the withdrawal management pieces? Like all of that is going to be really helpful for as the permanent center is planned and built. I do think that one of the things that I'm interested in continuing to have conversations with law enforcement partners and our other providers and is this idea of voluntary versus involuntary. I know that came up yesterday in the LIPSIC meeting. Turk House has been a model that's been used for 50 years. I think in Baltimore, they only use the voluntary model, if I'm remembering correctly, and we're looking at having a slightly different model. And I think that's because the old sobering facility was more of an involuntary. And so I think that's a harder adjustment for law enforcement. And as we're talking about like transfer and how do you get people there and how do you engage people and get them to opt in, I think that's a little bit of more of a complicated or complex conversation with somebody than just an involuntary. So as we're building the system that kind of balances both, what does that mean? And how can we, again, help lean in with our partners in the ways that will help encourage folks to choose the pathway or to take part in the pathway that's around to behavioral health and that. And then I want to thank Commissioner Moyer for continuing to bring up the idea of dual diagnosis and really how do we help identify the needs for folks. And again, this is an area where I think that some of the learnings that we have from this temporary facility can help us as we're thinking about the long-term needs that we have for the permanent facility. So thank you all very much for the presentation. I appreciate the good conversation. That actually concludes today's meeting. I know we're all used to very long meetings from coming out of the budget cycle, but that concludes today's meeting. Our next meeting will be our regular board meeting on Thursday, June 26th at 9:30 a.m. There being no further business, we are adjourned.